Have you ever wondered what it's like to work in the fashion industry? To make it as an artist, the hustle behind launching your own label, pursuing a career in music or any other creative industry? Halfstack has been pursuing these stories in print form for the last 4 years. This fall, we're bringing the inside story to YouTube. We connected with some of Chicago's most iconic creatives to hear their stories and share their journeys with you. We take you behind the scenes and offer candid, personal conversations with people pursuing their dreams. It's not as glamorous as the media would like you to think. We are sharing the raw reality behind making it. In this episode of Making It, we're introducing you to the Apparel Agency. The Apparel Agency is a full-service development and production management agency. They work to bring success to apparel brands worldwide through their comprehensive plans and private labeling. Located in the heart of America's Midwest, the Apparel Agency is based in Chicago and has a fully equipped team of industry professionals, creative and technical designers, pattern makers, sample makers, and access to production facilities to aid in the development and the manufacturing of apparel, accessories, and so much more. We visited the Apparel Agency over the span of a few months to learn more about the process behind launching a clothing label. They let us get a behind-the-scenes glimpse of what they work through with clients. In this week's episode, we learned all about the explore and plan phases behind launching a label with the Apparel Agency. We talked to their design team about what it takes to bring an idea to life, as well as what people should keep in mind when designing. We look at the process of creativity and the elements that help a concept transform into a tangible product. The team also gives us insight on the evolution of the fashion industry, the growing fashion scene right here in Chicago, and what designers can do to stand out from the crowd. Make sure you subscribe to keep up with future episodes. Next week, we'll be learning more about the final phase in the process, build.
So Explore is all about sourcing materials and figuring out what materials are needed for each of the designs. So it works very hand in hand with our creative designer and our sourcing manager, and they take all of the design concepts and start to implement real life fabrics, costing, everything that needs to go into a BOM for clients with their designs.
Yeah, sometimes they come in with a loose idea too, and it's not very defined, and then it's sort of like pulling images, doing some rough sketches, and trying to fine tune it. Like, what do you really want to make? Who's your market? Who are you selling this to? How old are they? And I'm trying to kind of pull that information out of them, because maybe they're thinking about it in their heads, but it hasn't necessarily come out yet. And then I'm always designing with fabrics in mind. I'm always sort of like, they're very readily available here, so by the time it gets to Explore, I've already sort of narrowed down, like, this design needs this sort of fabric, and talking to them about what kind of fabric and feel they want.
She's very good at also going through costing, so she has that realistic manufacturing type of mentality while designing, so that we're not over-designing, so that something's so impossible to make, either domestic, even overseas as well, but just having that in the back of your mind so that the concepts are going to relate easily to production. I mean, it's going to be based on everything that they're doing. So if your cost of goods are far too high before you even get labor pricing, how are you going to produce it? And especially if new designers want to keep lower minimums and try to keep it at low inventory so that they don't have to have a lot on hand, then they definitely need to keep that cost of goods and all of their materials during that explore phase or that sourcing phase. They need to keep that in mind so that they're not adding too many zippers into a garment, so that the labor price is going to get skyrocketed, and then you have to order 7 different size zippers for one style. Keeping it very as simple as it can be, but still having the stylized concepts present, but just in a good way.
Using that fabrications more than one place. I mean, I think a lot of new designers, and I remember when you get out of school, you're like, everything needs to be really special, and so you have each design has different fabrics, but in the real world, when you're designing a collection, you want to use the same fabric a couple places, if not, the majority in a small collection, so that you're saving on money Because the goal at the end of the day is to make money and have a business.
And have full consumption of your goods if possible.
Right.
Any of your cost of goods, depending on what level of market you want to be in, you got to back out what should your labor pricing and your goods be, so that you can meet your margins for however you're marking it up, whether it's wholesale, retail, just keeping all of that in mind.
I think of those discovery and explore a little bit like puzzle pieces. You're trying to get it all together, like where can we use this fabric? Are we going to use it? Okay, wait, that's too many zippers. If we do that, we're going to run into a problem there. So you're kind of working out all those issues because you don't want to work it out while you're making it.
Yeah.
So it is a little bit of, looking at the big picture on everything while you're designing one piece. Well, as far as when you're designing a fabric, a garment, it kind of leads you to what fabrics you need. You're like, okay, well, it has to be made out of this kind of stuff. So I'll just tell Kelly, like, oh, I'm thinking this vendor and this kind of fabric, and then she'll pull that, and then anything else similar to that, like whatever else. So I kind of lead her in the right direction so that we're not just running around in circles and fine-tuning it. A lot of times they have inspiration. I'll do, maybe give them some inspirations of, particular garments that I think would really work for them, and tell them why, more than just overall inspiration. I think for us, it's a lot more fine-tuned. It's not like this just big mood board, like, here's this girl and this. That's nice, but I think it's a little bit more fine-tuned as far as, garments. Would you like this detail? And, really communicating it out like that. Because sometimes when I draw it, some people can envision it and some people can't. Sometimes I need pictures
To understand
what it maybe I draw something that has a cutout, and then I'm like, here, see it? This garment has something similar, and that kind of brings it together for the client.
Yeah.
It's basically just you're supporting your designs with see, it can be made kind of thing, so that it just doesn't seem, like just a drawing.
Yeah.
Right.
How can I make it fit their market? How, we have that production focus always. So trying to make it realistic for them and for whatever their needs are for their type of business, more than just, here's a pretty shirt, we love your idea too, we'll design whatever you give us. We like to have that background so that we can put factual things behind a garment so they understand, what's needed to get to that production level.
When the source and explore part, there's all these materials in the world here you can have, but then when you really get into the nitty gritty of it, how many pieces are you doing? What's their minimum? So you're going to buy 8,000 yards. You have to select the right vendors for each client. If they're only going to make this much, then we have to find a vendor that's also going to sell them small amounts, so that they're not spending all their money on fabric. You're only using that fabric for the next 3 years.
Yeah.
It's a little tricky. Again, you're like, okay, well, I want that, but here's what you're gonna.
Here's the realistic
yeah,
view.
Sometimes that actually is the best design. So you're like, here's the box that I'm in. We have this design. We can work with these fabrics, with these vendors. But I don't think people should look at it as limiting. I think you should just find a way to be more creative with that and make it work. Usually, sometimes it's better.
Thing would start with kind of sourcing and plan or design would start at the same time. They're really hand in hand with each other. They play off of each other, so it's really happening all at the same time. At the very end of plan, you're going to have those design specs with all the construction details called out, anything that's going into it for trims, components, and then that's what Amber would then meet with our technical designer and pattern maker, and she would kind of go through what the design is, and then it moves into technical to start pattern making. Plan is all about design. Explore is all about finding the right materials to embellish those designs and work with those designs.
Right. And usually during my designing, I talk with Allison, our pattern maker, and Eli, and ask them all the time. I'm like, hey, I think this is going to work as far as technically. What do you have thoughts? Do you see any problems with this? Because if you're trying to make something that's too complicated, it's not going to look good at the sewing. So I always talk to them if I feel like thinking about doing this. Is there a better way that I could do this to be best so it look great in production? Because it's about like consistency, like So I definitely consult with them through the whole process, and then again we meet again to pass it off before she patterns it. And a lot of times clients even come in at the end, if they can, and we talk about the final in a meeting with Allison and I as far as before it goes into pattern making.
I mean, I think Midwest in general, I think we have a lot of inquiries that come from Midwest, and they love that we have this Chicago hub, especially for manufacturing, and even for, then they realize that we do all the services as well. So it's great for them because they can't always get into one of the coasts. And they might be a smaller brand that a New York a New York developer or manufacturer may not want to work with because they're not up to par with what their, normal clients are. Same thing with West Coast, I feel like, if they don't think you're as serious, then they may not be somebody who is willing to work with you as much. And I think Chicago, we work with any type of small company, and we have a wide range of skill set here that we can definitely utilize for a lot of brands that are emerging and starting.
I mean, I look at it like you can kind of do anything anywhere now. It's really changing. I think it used to just be two places, but it's very oversaturated, and with obviously how prevalent online sales are, and you really can run your business from where you want to. It's just a matter of shipping goods sometimes to you, that you can really do it anywhere. For us, it's just like, we still have clients that live on the West Coast that use us for various reasons, so I just think it's kind of like I think things are changing. I'm starting to see a lot more companies being all over the United States. I don't think it's going to be as localized or like as just certain areas anymore. It's got to spread out. I don't think it'll just stay in those two areas anymore. Really knowing who you want to be and not trying to just be super trend based. Like, I think right now you have to have a story about who you are, and like
it's a little more personal.
Yeah, and like really tell that story with your clothes, or
and their marketing.
You want to fill a hole in the market.
Yeah,
that is the best thing you can do, is to be like, find that small niche where there isn't something and try to fill it. And you can always have other products off that, but I think that's what stands out.